Hey everyone, today we're going to be doing a video about something that has been seen a lot on the channel recently, however not often discussed, and that is the DuraMags that I have been using in predominantly my Broke to Bougie series, as you can see over my shoulder there. But I've been using these DuraMags exclusively during the testing of that rifle, and I've also been using these in a bunch of other rifles and pistols over the past several months. And in general, I've been using C Products magazines for many years, pretty much the entire amount of time that I've been shooting, really. However, because of my increased use most recently, I finally feel as though I have a good enough handle on these to finally do my review of these and let you guys know what I think. Now, I'm not going to pretend as though there's only one magazine out there that works. I've got a lot of experience with a lot of magazines, and I like a lot of magazines. So I'm not going to be trying to say that you shouldn't use any other magazine necessarily. However, this video is really going to be basically me giving my seal of approval and endorsement of these magazines if you're looking for magazines to pick up. Now, I do want to mention that I did not pay for these magazines. These were provided at no cost for me to do some testing with. That being said, I did personally own several of these magazines prior to getting these ones sent out for review. And I've also purchased them since then for my own usage as well. But I still want to make that clear just so you understand what is going on behind the scenes with my review of these. Now, I didn't deal directly with DuraMag. I worked through a third party to provide these for review, but still something that you should be aware of before we get too far into this review. So, obviously these are metal magazines from DuraMag. I'm going to just use one here now as my visual aid. Lots of companies make metal magazines. What makes these ones from DuraMag different? What sets them apart from some of the other metal magazine options out there? And I think quite a bit. So first of all, kind of the most glaringly obvious thing, the traditional GI magazines that we're all used to are made of aluminum, whereas these ones, at least specifically from DuraMag, are made of stainless steel. Now, they do make aluminum magazines as well, as we'll roll in front of the camera later, but there are some specific benefits to these steel magazines over aluminum magazines. So first of all, they are going to be a little bit heavier. Now, that is also going to act as a downside later, but they are a little bit heavier, which is going to almost guarantee that these things are going to drop free from your gun, even when completely empty. Now, we'll do an actual test of that here in a minute, but that is one of the benefits. The other benefit is these are going to be more durable than your standard aluminum magazines. So, for example, if you look at AK-47 magazines in the early days when they were trying to figure out what material they were going to go with, a lot of them were, at least I'll put it this way, they tried doing a waffle pattern aluminum magazine. However, they just proved to not be durable enough, and so they switched back to the steel that they were using as well. And if you look at the US military GI mags, now all magazines are relatively seen this way, but they are really seen as a disposable item, as a wear-use item that you will have to replace. And especially the original magazines that were issued with the M16s were meant to be one-time use magazines. The stainless steel magazines are going to be far more durable and should have a much longer lifespan. Now, one of the other things that DuraMag does to improve the lifespan of these is the springs that they're using for the followers are, according to them at least, going to outlive any other spring in any other magazine. So these are really designed for long-term use, which is a good thing, especially for us in the civilian world when we don't have an agency behind us supplying our magazines for us, and we're all having to pay for these out of our pocket. Having something that's going to last a long time and be durable and hold up to aggressive use is definitely going to be a good thing. Now, one of the other things that sets these apart, if you look at a traditional aluminum magazine, I have just another one that I've been using for years and years and years. The spine and the front rib here of the magazine are typically going to be welded. That's perfectly normal, and I personally have not run into any failures there. However, that is a potential point of failure. What DuraMag does is they use a post and hole setup on both the rib and on the spine of the magazine, and hopefully I'll be able to roll in a close-up picture here so you can actually see what that looks like. But it's basically another mechanical way for these magazine halves to be joined together and prevent them from separating or running into any issues, on top of also being spot welded in there to make sure that these are going to, again, withstand a lot of use. Now, there's some other little minutia that DuraMag does in the geometry and design of like the feed lips on here that are going to, again, make it a little bit more durable and also aid in the retention of rounds. So especially when dropped, some magazines have a tendency to spit out rounds, even magazines that I've reviewed previously on the channel that I otherwise like. These are not going to do that. Now, if you want to see some more destructive testing of magazines like this, I'll direct you over to VSO Gun Channel. He did a little bit more of a destructive style test on some of the DuraMags. Actually, it was a couple of years ago, I think. I'll have links to that down below, but these things basically will hold up to use and abuse far better than some of the alternatives out there. Now, even though these are stainless steel, you do still have the ability to use it with your common accessories. So as you can see, I have one of the Magpul Ranger plates on the base plate of this magazine, just for use in plate carriers, just to aid in being able to draw the magazine out a little bit easier. And if you watch the footage that I have from all of my Broke to Bushi testing, you'll have seen that in use and in action quite a bit. And I have not had any issues with these things coming loose. So even though these are designed for the GI aluminum magazines, they work in these stainless steel magazines as well. Now, one of the other things just kind of in general that DuraMag has been doing that I appreciate, even though I'm not a full consumer of this, is the ability for them to manufacture magazines for almost every caliber, at least that I'm aware of, that you can chamber an AR-15 in. So whether it's 350 Legend, 450 Bushmaster, 6.5 Grendel, 6.8 SPC, 7.62 39, they are making dedicated magazines for all of those calibers. And that is not something that most other companies are bringing to market. And what that means is increased reliability and increased durability on those magazines in those more, I guess, oddball calibers, if we can call them that. So especially for those of you out there who are using other calibers, that is going to be a nice thing. However, where they don't have to do something special is in something like 300 blackout. So if you look at most polymer magazines, they have to incorporate dedicated 300 blackout magazines because of the way the internal geometry works and basically the way the ogive or shape of the bullet is. They can kind of run into conflict. Because of the internal design of aluminum and steel magazines, that is not an issue you're going to run into. So I don't have to buy two sets of mags if I want to be able to have 300 blackout as well as 223 or 556 guns. So that is another benefit of the steel or aluminum mags in general. Now, one of the other big things that you're not going to run into with, again, stainless steel or aluminum mags is like feed lips spreading or cracking or anything like that, because that is something that I have run into, especially like Gen 2 PMags. I used to do annual training with these guys in January where we'd be out in below freezing temperatures. And actually, if you go on DuraMag's website, they actually kind of break down the science behind why this happens. But in the extreme low temperatures and different type of moisture-rich environments, you can actually get freezing inside of the polymer, which makes it a lot more prone to cracks. And on multiple occasions, I watched PMags crack, where the feed lips would crack and then the magazine was completely unusable, or some other part of the magazine would crack and render it unusable. So that is something, again, you're not going to run into with a metal magazine. Now, where you run into potential drawbacks is while the feed lips won't spread or crack or anything like that, you do run into the potential of dents. Now, again, theoretically, steel magazines should be more resilient against that. However, that is a potential risk that you run into. There are ways of maybe not necessarily mitigating those risks, but ensuring that you have ways of repairing that, but that is just something to be mindful. That being said, again, you can watch the video that VSO Gun Channel did. He ran over one of these, unloaded, so he didn't even have the support of the rounds inside of it, and he didn't run into any feeding issues there. I can also say I have chucked these things around on dirt and mostly gravel. The range where I predominantly shoot is gravel. I've stepped on these things and it hasn't been an issue that I've run into. Obviously, if it gets run over by a tank, that might be a potential source of problems, but that is not something that I, again, have am necessarily immediately worried about happening to my magazines. Now, let's say you're more a fan of the traditional aluminum magazine. That is definitely something that DuraMag offers as well. You may be able to tell, hopefully, from the camera here. This is actually one of their OD green anodized magazines. They obviously make your standard kind of gray or black anodized magazines, but with the aluminum, they now have the ability to anodize these in a variety of different colors. So I know they've got like blue, they've got red, they've got pink. Obviously, my heart is set on OD green, so I've got several of these OD green aluminum GI mags as well. And again, I haven't run them quite as aggressively as I have these stainless steel mags in that Broke to Bougie series, but that is still a potential option for you guys. You still get all of those benefits I mentioned, like that little post and hole joining system for the rib and the spine of the magazine. You still get that internal geometry that is specifically designed for this caliber from the ground up, and again, those extremely resilient springs that they're using for that follower to again make sure that this thing is going to last a lifetime. Now, before I start the drop-free test with these guns, I will also mention that if you're more a fan of the retro style, they do make 20 rounders as well. This is one of the 20 round stainless steel mags, because I picked up some of these because I figured if I'm going to be doing some accuracy testing on that Broke to Bougie build behind me, I wanted to be able to shoot off of a rest more easily, and the shorter 20 round magazine does that. Also, it just looks far more appropriate in a retro build like this dissipator here from Palmetto State Armory. So we might as well just demonstrate here the drop free with that 20 rounder. So again, this is a steel magazine. We'll go and do it with one of the other 30 round steel magazines, and again, drops free. We'll also do it with the aluminum magazine, which is lighter weight, but again, drops free. Now, this should come as no surprise to anybody, considering that the metal magazines are kind of known for this style of dropping free. It's just a byproduct of the size efficiency of these. So now we've got a Midwest Industry, and I wanted to do this with a variety of guns so we get a variety of lower receivers. But again, Midwest Industries drops free aluminum and drops free steel. No problems there. We've got my What Would Stoner Do carbine here. So this is one of the polymer lower receivers. These were designed for the Gen 3 PMags, as I understand it, but steel mag drops free. Aluminum mag drops free. For what it's worth, I didn't actually test this before rolling, but I just kind of knew what the results were going to be. We'll do my TWS. This is one of their Mark 1 lowers, so one of the completely ambidextrous lowers. Again, aluminum mag drops free. Steel mag drops free. No problems whatsoever. Now, I didn't mention it when I was talking about the benefits before, but one of the other benefits of GI style or STANAG style magazines in general is that they're going to work with all STANAG compatible guns. So for example, I have my Beretta ARX 100 here, my Italian Galleon. I cannot do this with the Gen 3 PMag. These will not accept Gen 3 PMags. However, they do work with STANAG magazines. Drops free with the steel. Drops free with the aluminum. Another gun that I don't have in front of me, but I have used these with, is the Set Me L model guns from Marcolmar. They actually ship with a DuraMag, and those will only use STANAG pattern magazines. Another option there is the FS 2000. You can only use the GI pattern magazines. So one of the other benefits of this, both aluminum and stainless steel magazines from DuraMag, is they're going to work in any STANAG firearm, and that is definitely a benefit if you are someone who has a variety of different 5.56 guns that need something to feed them. Now, it's a common saying, and I think it's actually DuraMag's slogan, but a gun is only as good as its magazine. The magazines, if they are not reliable, if they're not durable, are going to be a failure point of the gun. And that is the reason that I chose to use these in that Broke to Bougie gun, because my goal with that AR behind me is I wanted to see what the actual build quality was, or especially the parts quality, since I did the build myself, of those parts from Palmetto State Armory. And I feel like in order to adequately test that and review that, I needed to make sure that the magazines were not going to be a potential trouble source, and hence why I've been using these magazines specifically for that testing. Basically, I already knew from my prior experience with DuraMag and C Products magazines that these weren't going to be a potential trouble source, and hence why I, again, wanted to use these, and they have not disappointed. That gun alone is over 1,300 rounds exclusively using DuraMags, and again, these DuraMags have found their way into a bunch of other firearms that I've been testing along the way, as well as guns that I've used over the many, many years that I have been shooting. Now, all of this is well and good, but if the magazines are too expensive, then kind of what's the point? Because the whole point of having magazines is having a lot of them, at least in my opinion. And the nice thing is, I checked before starting filming, if you go over to GunMag Warehouse, you can get the anodized aluminum magazines for anywhere from, like, I think it was like $10 to $12. The steel magazines are right at $15 a piece, and to me that is a perfectly reasonable price to pay for a good quality magazine that can, I think, realistically last a lifetime, unless you're running them over with tanks. So if you are interested in checking these out, I will have a link down below to GunMag Warehouse's listings for these magazines. For what it's worth, that is going to be an affiliate link. If you want to get these mags, but you don't want to assist my channel in the process, you are more than welcome to buy them from your own local dealers or from any other website or GunMag Warehouse. Just not following my links, that is up to you. But that link will be down below if you also want to support my channel in the process, or if you just want to check out what other magazines they have over there. Now, obviously, during my testing with these, I did not do any sort of destructive testing. And I guess I should also mention, I did number each of my magazines. I have a bunch of them here off to the side, like one still covered in dry dirt and mud. I had 8 of them, so they are all numbered 1 through 8. And I did that just in case there were any issues. I could be able to track that through magazines in case the magazines were having any issues, and I can thankfully say that that was not an issue that presented itself. But in case you're wondering why these things are numbered, I do recommend numbering or some other way labeling magazines, so if you do have an issue, you can track that and know whether it's the gun or whether it's the accessories inside of the gun. But anyway, just wanted to explain that. And again, going back to where I was, I did not do any destructive testing with these. If you would like to see some sort of testing like that, let me know. I want to try to keep the 8 that I'm using for the Broke to Bougie gun more or less the same, so I won't be using these, but we do carry these at the store where I work, so I'd be happy to pick one up or a couple of them up if you guys would like to see some sort of destructive testing. But I think the long-term use testing is going to be a more valuable data set because, again, getting thousands of rounds through magazines like this, I think is going to be a more realistic test of what you can expect performance-wise from your magazine. But again, if you want to see testing like that, let me know what type of tests you'd like to see down below. When I did them in the past, I got a lot of, I'll call them critiques of what I should have been doing instead. So let me know what you guys would want to see if I were to do a video like that. So I know this was a relatively long-winded video, which is all just a way of saying I recommend these mags, and if you're looking for metal mags, these are ones that I think you can buy in confidence. So I appreciate you sticking with me if you've made it this far. I do always appreciate feedback. So if you want to, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can throw those in the comment section down below. If you feel so inclined, you can check out my link to Patreon down below. I do post all my content over there early. We have some exclusive content. We have live streams. We have a Discord server set up. If any of that stuff sounds interesting to you, or again, you just want to financially support the channel, definitely follow the link down below for that. Again, you can follow the links to the DuraMag website down below, as well as the GunMag Warehouse listing for these if you are so interested. But anyway, with all that being said, as always, I hope you got something out of this video, and I really appreciate you watching.